I am Cameron Reaves, and this is my wife, Sarah Reaves. And we have a daughter, Evelyn Reaves, who is 3, and then our son, Edward, who is 19 months.
Evelyn is so fun. She's super sweet. She is total 3-year-old right now. And Edward, he is super adventurous, gets into everything. He's always running around, such an active boy. Evelyn will sit in color for 2 hours and Edward will just run circles around her the whole time, and I feel like that explains them perfectly. So a few days before he actually had his first seizure, he started having an eye twitch. And so that was the first thing that I noticed. I was on the floor playing with him, and I was looking up at him, and I saw that his eye was twitching. And a few days prior to that, I had seen a video talking about infantile spasms, which isn't what he had, but it talks about how they can be really subtle movements, and there's like a seizure but a little bit different, and so my eye just kind of caught that, and I just thought that seemed off, and so I called our pediatrician, and they asked me to just film some videos of him, try to capture it. They were like, it could just be normal, just like a random thing that you saw. But I just had this feeling that something was off, and so for days I was just filming him, and a few days later, it was probably 3 days later, he had one seizure after another that I caught on camera, and from there we took him to the emergency room. Thankfully, he's a PA, so he knew like which hospital to go to that had a pediatric neurology team on site. That night they put the EEG monitoring on him, and we stayed the night in the ER on a hospital gurney, and then that morning, he didn't have any seizures overnight, but that morning when he woke up, he had 28 seizures in an hour. So he had just one after another, all captured on the EEG monitoring. At that point, we didn't know like what the cause of it was, or like why, genetically he had it, but we just knew that he had epilepsy.
For both of us, I think looking back on this whole situation, we can just see God's hand moving in our own hearts and minds, with the situation itself, and just provision in everything that we've had at our fingertips to care for him. And I think the other thing is just the level of perseverance that God has instilled in both of us is totally not from us. It's totally from him and from above, that the only way that we would be able to get through this situation, and the amount of times we've been in the hospital, the amount of times we have to see him with EEGs on his head, it only comes from him.
I think like I've shared that this past year has felt really lonely, and just like being afraid of or fearful of what the future holds for him. Actually today in service, Pastor Zeb said, God doesn't promise that we're going to walk through easy things, but he always promises that he's going to walk with us. And I think that that's something I've been trying to put into words, and he said it perfectly. I feel like God has walked with us through this situation every step of the way. Edward has epilepsy, but it's not going to define who he is as a person, and we've already seen that with him. He is such a strong-willed little boy, and I know that is something that God has given him that is going to help him do so well in all that he tries to do.
For those that are going through stressful situations, anywhere similar or not similar to what we're going through, I think ultimately the thing I can say is run to Jesus.
We still have really hard days, and it's been one of the hardest things we've ever had to walk through in our life, even not just as parents. I talk about how each day I'm just watching and waiting for something to happen, or making sure that nothing's gonna happen. And at night, I can't watch Edward when I'm sleeping. And so sometimes it's really hard for me to close my eyes, because I want to be able to stay awake and make sure he's okay. And in those moments, I just pray to God and just ask for peace and for him to just watch over him. And when I start talking to him, I'm able to rest. Anytime that we have had to take him to the hospital or for his outpatient EEG scans, he has to get 28 wires on his head. They go around, they mark all the spots that they're going to put them, and then they clean all of the spots, and then they take glue and they glue on the EEG leads like all over his head. It's a long process and it's a lot for him to sit through, but we found that he really loves listening to worship music during it, and his favorite song is Miracles by Maverick City. And so we basically just play that for him, and he is such a busy boy, but he will lay back and just let them put the wires on as long as like the music is playing, and it just calms him so much.